We hope you've had a good break and welcome back to InnoPoly 2021. We'll now commence our workshop, an introduction to the business model canvas. It takes more than just an idea to be an entrepreneur. Execution is vital to any business, and even the most successful among us may face difficulties overcoming this leap at times. Over the past few years, theorists have developed a framework that makes it easier for us to overcome this great challenge. The business model canvas helps us understand how our products or services create value for our clients by addressing certain pain points. By gaining an in-depth understanding of this, we can then develop and execute strategies to turn our ideas into reality. Today's BMC workshop is presented by Mr. Eric Tan, partner at Accelebator Private Limited. Mr. Tan is the managing director of the Resource Group Private Limited. He started his career with PwC and later joined Spring Seeds Capital as a senior investment manager. Mr. Tan is also a track instructor for the Lean Launchpad program supported by the National Research Foundation for Nanyang Technological University and Singapore Management University. He's also mentoring with NTU, SMU, Institute of Engineers Singapore, and Action Community for Entrepreneurs. Mr. Tan, please.
Thank you for the kind introduction. All right, my name is Eric. All right, I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Nanyang Poly, for having me here today to share about the business model canvas. I think the MC has given a very good introduction for me, so I don't have to go into detail. But very much, I think that now the thing I want to highlight here is that right now, other than my own business that I'm running, I'm also actively being an instructor, giving venture building workshop, as well as mentoring startups. I think over the years, I might have gone through more than 500 over startups. And it is very interesting to see the ecosystem in Singapore developing. And whatever Nanyang Poly is doing now is, and together with ACE and other organizations, is continuing the legacy and the initiative by the government to help build more entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs in Singapore. So hopefully one of you here will be the next grad that we can see in the next 5 to 10 years. Right? But every journey starts with the first step. Okay. So everyone is here, I'm sure that you have an idea or you have an intention, perhaps now or later, to start a business. Okay. When we first think about starting a business, we probably have a checklist of things that we want to do, things that we need to consider. As you start to actually go down the checklist and note down your business idea, your strategy, it will probably look something like this. Right? You are thinking of the idea, what is the innovation, who are the customers, the concepts, all right, what you need to do, the formulas, the financial projections. It will look something like this. So where the business model canvas comes in is that, right, basically it is a framework for us to put our business idea into 9 components in the business model canvas in order to actually look at the business plan holistically, looking at how different components of our business plan will gel together, right? Okay. So the business model canvas is separated into 9 components. How it's going to be used is that, right, we start with the right-hand side, which is the customer segment, and then we move to the value proposition. Right? We see how we are going to build a relationship with the customers. In other words, how do we get, keep, and grow the customers that we have, right? Channels talks about distribution channels. After we have a product or a service or value proposition, how do we actually deliver the value proposition to the customer segment that we have actually targeted? Once we have figured this out, this part is very crucial. Once we have figured this out, what are the key activities that we need to do in order to develop the product? Right? What are the key activities we need to do in order to deliver the product or the services to the customers? And then what are the resources we need, right, to actually carry out these activities? And perhaps there'll be certain activities that we can't do in-house, so we consider partners as well. At the bottom, this is the question of asking how much. End of the day, the fundamental of business, every business objective is to make money. Even not-for-profit businesses, charity, they also aim to have a healthy bottom line. Right? They may not be aiming for profit. Their objective is to help the underprivileged group. But end of the day, only a sustainable business model whereby you have a healthy bottom line, the business or the not-for-profit business, the social enterprise, the charity, can be sustainable and run in the long run. So the longer it can go on, the more people get help. So every single business we see out there, right, at the bottom line. So we have to figure out what are the different components that cost money, what are the cost structure that we have, so that we know that the company is profitable, because end of the day, the revenue is more than the cost structure. So the MC shared that I was with Spring Six Capital under Spring Singapore. I left about 10, 11 years ago. During that time, there wasn't really a lot of templates like this, or there isn't a BMC. Okay, a lot of entrepreneurs, even some that we invested in there in deep tech, they started off without doing any validation or figuring out what are the important components in the business. What happens is that a lot of time is very haphazard, right? And it's a pity that we do see quite a lot of very good startups with very good potential. In the end, they did not really fulfill their full potential, and the company, they cease to exist today. Right? Okay, so with that said, let's dive into the business model canvas. The starting point for the business model canvas, as I shared earlier, starts from the customer segment and the value proposition that we are looking at. Okay. So what is a value proposition? It is not about your product or your idea. A lot of time when we ask the participant to apply the business model canvas, when we talk about value proposition, the first thing that we get is that they list out their product. Okay, I'm this, I'm that. For technology startups, they list out their technical specs of their product. No, that is not what we're looking for. The value proposition is not about your product. It is about what is the need or the problem you're solving for your customer. All right, or what is the gain that you're actually giving to the customer. It is about what is the value, the benefit that you give to your customer. Okay. Understanding this is very important, because end of the day, when you're going out there to do your marketing, be it a B2B or B2C business model, the customers, yes, they want to know what your product is, but what is most important to them and what they want to hear is, how does your product help me? What does your product do for me? Okay. Having said that, we have to know who the customers are. So we'll go a little bit into customer discovery later on. Okay. Very often, of the hundreds of startups that I have gone through and hear their pitches, right? A lot of that, not all the time, but sometimes I hear customer segment definition by some startup that, anyone, all consumers, I'm a B2C business, all consumers are my customers. That is not true. It just goes to show that the team or the company may not have done a proper segmentization of the customer segment. Okay. If you are talking about all consumers being your customers, it's very vague. You're flying at 50,000 feet above the air. Right? At that time, you may not even see who the customers are, and you cannot tailor your resources to build a product that have a very niche and targeted value proposition to a specific group of customers. All right. When we talk about customer segment, we are thinking of a group of people from this segment that have a very compelling reason. All of them have very similar behavior. They have a very compelling reason to buy your product because of the value proposition you are giving to them. But if you talk about all consumers, the fallacy here is, my grandmother is a consumer, my 10-year-old son is a consumer, I'm a consumer, right? That most of the time there isn't really a product that actually fits people from all demographic or age group. And this is actually just in Singapore, right? Some pictures I hear, they are talking about all consumer globally. It is not something that is very feasible. Okay, narrowing down and identifying the correct segment also helps you to focus your marketing effort. Right? We don't have, as startups, our resources are limited. We do not have unlimited resources. Even if it is true that all consumer may potentially be the target, we still have to narrow it down so that we can spend our resources in the most scalable manner possible. Okay, so let's go into customer discovery and value proposition. Okay, so normally here, this is actually a lecture room. I'm doing this virtually, right? So normally here, I'll ask a question. Okay, there is a research done by CB Insights on the top 20 reasons, right, why startup fail. I think they went through about 1,000 startups. Okay, so I'm just curious if I'm able to get some answers from the audience with the help of the IT vendor, right? Can I get some answers from the audience, right, in terms of what do you think is the top reason that startups actually fail? Are we able to get some response from the audience? The top reason, number one reason why startup fail? Okay, I'm not seeing any response in the chat, right? Sorry, first time I'm doing it in this manner. So anyway, with that, let's move on. Okay, so based on the research right by CB Insights, okay, the top reason that startups actually fail right is no market need. The common answer that I get from the participants will be run out of cash, not the right team. All these are also top reason, but the number one reason that actually has a much higher percentage, even compared to the second reason that startups actually fail, is no market need. Why is this so? It's because right, when companies first started, there are limited resources, and if that we don't plan it properly and get a good product market fit, all right, we don't identify the correct market that is very interested in the value proposition we are providing, right? This actually may lead to failure because startups normally have limited resources, right? There's only so many tries we can to pivot our market segment or the product development. So a lot of startups fail because they have a hypothesis of, okay, I think this is my market, and I have this solution that I think this market will love. They build the product, they go to the market, realizing that the market either not need the solution, or they are not willing to pay for it because what they're solving is not a painful enough problem. So product market fit is actually the most important thing that we need to consider. And before we dive into build the full product, it is advisable to actually do a very in-depth study to go and validate that this market do have this problem. Whatever we assume on the market is true, and this product is able to provide a certain value proposition, able to solve the problem for the market segment. So value proposition basically describe right the net impact. What is the net impact of benefits, right? The improvement that your product is able to deliver and offer to the decision maker. It must be meaningful. All right, it must be meaningful to the decision maker. Okay, such that it is sufficient to convince them to change their behavior and pay you money to buy that solution, or rather to get that benefit or that value proposition from using your product. One of the things that we do note here is that right, we say decision maker, we didn't say customer. The reason for this is because be it a B2B or B2C business model, end of the day, a lot of time we are building a product for end user, but the person that we need to convince, right, is basically a decision maker. Right? I'll have some examples later that I will give so that you understand where I'm coming from. So in order to actually figure out do a customer discovery and figure out the value proposition, okay, out of the BMC, there is a submodel here or sub-tool here that we are using called the VPC. The VPC stands for Value Proposition Canvas, and this is what it looks like. On the right side, this circle, this actually represents the customers, all right? The head here you see in the center, it basically represents the customer. Okay. We need to understand from the customer point of view, okay, what are their jobs to be done? What are the gains they hope to achieve for doing this job? And what are the pain they face as they need to actually do this job? So a job to be done, right, it's not about not about your product, services, or specific solution. A job to be done is basically the underlying purpose for which, right, your customers will want to buy a product or services or solution. So it's actually very important as we're trying to figure out whether this is the correct market segment or not. We go out there to do validation, to always probe the underlying reason. A job to be done by the customers, right, it can be social or emotional. Most of the time, if let's say our business model is a B2C business model, there will be a very strong emotional or social purpose. For example, all of us drinks, I think most of us who have at least in our life bought a cup of coffee from Starbucks. All right. What is the jobs to be done from buying coffee from Starbucks? Some of us may say that, it is actually to get a cup of good coffee, but there's a lot of other options out there that probably is around the same standard. So why Starbucks? When we buy Starbucks, there is actually a certain social element of purpose there, because like Starbucks is a branded coffee. All right. This is also why Starbucks actually grew exponentially during a financial difficult time many years ago. Okay, there was a financial crisis when Starbucks actually boomed, because a lot of people being affected by the financial crisis couldn't afford a lot of luxuries, goods, and enjoyment. All right. So Starbucks being a branded coffee gave them a few good factor that, right, they can show their social status that, okay, I can afford luxury coffee, branded coffee. So there is certain emotional and social element or purpose, right, when we are looking at B2C customers. But it may also be functional. So the functional part is that, well, I still need to drink coffee, right? Other than giving me an elevated social status when my colleague or friends see me with a Starbucks cup, the functional part is that I still need to drink coffee, right? Comparing a B2C to B2B, normally a B2B business model, your customers' underlying purpose will be a lot more functional. So once we understand what is the underlying reason or purpose that they are going to buy a specific product or solution, okay, what are the gains that the customer actually want to achieve? It may or may not have been achieved, or maybe not to the level that they want by buying the product and services. Right? We also need to know what are the pain the customers are currently experiencing based on the current way of doing things in order to solve these jobs to be done. So once we figure out the customer jobs to be done, what are the gains they desire, what are the pain they are facing, this is where we move to the left-hand side. So the left-hand side is about something that you can contribute to the customers. Right? So if there's actually a specific gains and desire, the gain creators are the value proposition in order to create that gain for them. Okay. The pain relievers are the value proposition from using your product or services that's able to relieve this pain for them. Okay. And all this, once you know what these value proposition are, it goes towards your product and services. So this is then your product and service. So if you look at the VPC, we are moving from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. Okay. It's always about the customer first. All right. Understanding the customer's underlying purpose or reason to buy a certain product. We look at the gain, the pain that they want and face. Then we talk about what value proposition and deliver. Then we talk about product. That's why we say it's not about your product first. So for the BMC, part of the BMC model, how it's going to be used is that everything that we put inside are actually guesses. All these are hypotheses that we have as we build our business plan. In order to make sure that we have a good product market fit, the advice here is once you have filled up all the boxes, even for your VPC, you have certain hypotheses, you have certain assumptions. The important thing is actually to go out there, walk the ground, interview the customers to validate that these are true. So when you do that, you need to set aside your product and solution. There are a lot of times when startups go out there to do the market validation. They start off with telling the customers about, hey, I have this product, you can do this. Right? If you want to do market validation, please start from the customer first. Right? Understand what is their underlying purpose, understand what kind of gain they want, what kind of pain they are facing. All right, in order to then, okay, so what if there's something that can do this for you? Right. Then you lead back to the features of your product. Okay, so don't start from your product and solution when you are going out there to do market validation. Okay, so for here, in order to put this into context for everyone, we are going to give a very simple example. This is a company called Biomus. Okay, Biomus is a company that spun off from NUS many years ago. Right, it was one of the company that was invested by Seeds Capital. What they did, right, was basically transparent braces. There are a lot of alternatives to transparent braces, a lot of different brands right now, but back then in Singapore, at the very least, in this region, they are the first. Okay. So what does their VPC look like? So we start from the right-hand side, which is about the customers. Okay. Forget about the transparent braces first. So the customer jobs to be done here is very functional. It is basically to align their teeth. To stop. Okay, because the customer have a problem, they have a misaligned teeth, right? What are the gains that they desire to align the teeth? The gain they have that they desire by using dental braces is to improve their look and to improve their self-esteem. But as they're using braces, some of us here may have wore braces when we were teenagers, it's expensive, it is uncomfortable, right? You have something mounted onto your teeth, right? And the most painful thing that a lot of teenagers dislike about braces is that it can be ugly, right? While we are wearing it, especially, right, we don't like how we look in braces. Yeah. Some of us get called nicknames by our classmates. So then we talk about how we can actually help to look at the gain and pain for the customer. So in terms of game creators, right, rank braces this is a very functional and very simple example. So therefore, braces are braces. We just have to make sure that right we have comparable performance because the braces out there back then right is already able to address the gain that the customer wants. So the focus was actually on the pain. Okay. In terms of being uncomfortable, you still have to wear the braces even though it's transparent. So there's nothing they can do about it. So what this tells us is that right, there may be times whereby there are certain pains we cannot solve. We cannot solve all the problems for the customers. We have to solve things that are important enough, right, to compel them to pay for our product and services because we can give them a very good value proposition. What they can definitely solve is reduce ugliness, right? I mean, it's still braces, but at least it's transparent, right? So it reduces ugliness. But one of the things that biomas realize is that one of the pain that the customer actually tell them is that it's actually costly, expensive. Braces are expensive. However, being a new technology or new product, they are actually slightly more expensive than what is out there right now. They can't actually solve the part about the braces being expensive for the customer. So how? What do we do? What they do here is that right, all this market validation data that we get actually helps us to also look inwards into our business model and also the customer segmentation. So what they did was that, okay, since they study the reduced ugliness part is actually something that is very important to the customer, and they realize that, okay, mostly it's actually female users who have that problem, all right? Being costly is concern for the average customer or this average comment by and large from the segment of the entire segment of people that need to wear braces in Singapore. So what they did was that, okay, since we are slightly higher cost, but this pain is painful enough for some people who want to pay for it, they actually pivoted or rather they zoom in on the market segment. So they're targeting people who need to wear braces but come from a higher income family. So they actually did a little bit of pivot. Instead of targeting everybody who need to wear braces, they target users or teenagers who need to wear braces from higher income family. So how does this help? As a startup, they have limited resources. If they have actually spent their effort and did not do any market validation, the assumption will probably be, okay, we reduce ugliness, that's why they started doing this. And if they have ignored this costly portion concern from the customers, they will have actually spent all their effort going to all the dentists throughout Singapore. But knowing that they have to target customers from higher income family, they can actually focus their effort by going to dentists in like Bukit Timah, right? Areas whereby it's the more premium dentists are located in CBD or in 6th Avenue area, Bukit Timah and whatnot. So they spend less resources and they scale faster, being able to penetrate and get very good market traction. And eventually, as the company grow, they're able to also achieve a better economy of scale. They can then lower the price of their product in order to target the mass market. So how do we actually define the customer archetype and the persona? As we mentioned earlier, we have to understand the customer in depth. We have to know who they are. What's the gender of customer we're targeting, their demographic, title, position. Okay, we have to know why do they buy. Is there a discretionary budget for this area of product and services they buy, and what matters to them, what motivates them, and also who actually influence them. By answering all these questions, we'll also be able to figure out, right, in the decision-making process of the customer, who are the players. So if you look at dental braces, for example, the teenager will be the user, who are the payer and the decision maker. The payer and the decision maker will be the parents. The recommender may be the dentist because the dentist is who they trust. So for biomas, they have to actually target recommenders who are the dentists in areas that can target the customers they're looking at, who are the higher income family. And who are the influencers? The influencers in today's world, it will be YouTubers and whatnot, possibly, right? But in more traditional sense or offline sense, it may be friends and families. So dental braces are a consumer product. It looks simple enough. There may be about 4 people we have to consider. Okay, these are the 4 people that we have to cycle or influence them that will good value proposition. But if we were to go to a B2B business, right, there's a lot more people that we have to actually consider. Okay. End of the day, in a B2B business model, right, the user is just one. There is the influencer, maybe external or internal, right? There's the recommender, it may be the finance manager, for example, if I'm selling a accounting software, okay? The decision maker may be the CEO, the economic buyer may be the CFO, okay? There may also be saboteur. Okay. One of the business I'm in is actually consultancy. Okay. What is interesting for my business is this. The saboteur are also the users. Okay, when I do consultancy, it's always a very top-down approach. I talk to the senior management. They feel that, okay, it needs to change. There's need for some changes because process are not in place. All right. But when consultants come in to consult, there are changes to process, and the people that are most resistant to change, right, are actually the end users, which means that if I'm consulting on HR process, the HR executive have to change the way they're doing things. They don't like it. They're very comfortable with how they've been doing things for the last 10 years. Okay, so the users actually become the saboteur. Why this is important? Because end of the day, if I want the customer to sign, right, the user who is also the saboteur may also be the influencer, right? I have to convince them there's actually value in terms of change of process or basically to digitize the process, right? So when I talk to them, I have to tell them that, look, right now everything is being done manually and they are subjected to human error. When something goes wrong, who does the boss blame? The boss blames you. But if you were to put the process in place, yes, you digitize, there's a system in place, it may change certain things that you're doing, you have to learn, but end of the day, everything is recorded, accountability is there. There's less chances that, things goes wrong due to human error and the boss actually rain down on you, right? Okay, one thing to note is that for the VPC, okay, we cannot change the right-hand side. For whichever customer segment that we define, and we are trying to go out there to validate and understand the customers are how they are. We can't change their underlying purpose. We can't change the gain they want or the pain they face. We can only change the left-hand side. Okay. So if let's say what we have right now, we realize that, okay, it doesn't give the right value proposition to the customers because it doesn't address the gain and pain that they want and face, then we need to see, okay, is there a possibility that we actually tweak this to provide a compelling reason for them to want to buy our product? If we can't do that, we can't change the component here. But what we can do is that we can pivot to look at a different customer segment, or like what Biomas did, zoom down into a niche customer segment that our product can have a better product market fit. Okay, so this is for the VPC, all right? So remember, we have to probe the underlying reason, the underlying gains and pains. Okay, if not, right, Henry Ford actually put it very well. If he didn't probe the underlying reason that the customers want to get from point A to point B faster, okay, if you just ask them, what do you want? Customers would have told Henry Ford that, right, they wanted a faster horse. Then we may not have automobile on the road today, but we'll have horses on the road, okay? So another example that we want to give here is basically, right, what is the value proposition of Grab? Okay. So for here, right, I want everybody to just take a minute, okay? Think about what is Grab's value proposition canvas, okay? What is the customer jobs to be done, okay? What is the gain they desire? What is the pain that they are facing, okay? And what are the value proposition that Grab actually offers to the customer? Okay, so just take 1 minute to think about it. I can't really get response from you guys here. So just take 1 minute to think about it and then I'll just go through the answers, right? So think about, most of us here are definitely passenger. So we are looking at passenger here. Most of us definitely have taken Grab at least once in our life, I assume, right? Yeah. Okay, so think about, we are in a position here to think about, what is the jobs to be done by the customer. So think about it. All right, and then after that, I'll show you the answer, compare notes. This is to give you some context into how the VPC is being applied. Right. So I do understand that not everybody wear braces. For me, I never wore braces before, so I can only assume because my sisters wear braces. Okay, so we are about 1 minute. Okay. So if we take Grab as an example, right, and we try to fill up the VPC, basically what the customer wants to do here, right, sometimes the answer may be getting from point A to point B, okay, but being more specific, right, actually is on demand. So commute on demand. Okay. What they want to gain is that they want to arrive on time, they want assured availability, they want to travel in comfort. Okay. And in some places, safety is also important. The pain that they are facing right now is long response time. Right now, there's a lot more cashless payment, but in the past, not as much when it started. So non-availability during peak hour and run out of cash. Okay, and it can be expensive. Okay. So the value proposition from Grab, right, is that they have a large pool of on-demand drivers, which help to assure availability. When there's assured availability, also means that you can get there in time. Okay, there's also trust. Okay, there's also trust, so you address the gain of safety and travel in comfort. For pain reliever, they had a dynamic pricing which addresses the issue of non-availability in during peak hour. But of course, then when that happens, right, it's going to be more costly. But they are trying to solve problem more towards the peak hour period. Okay. There's online payment, so we solve the problem of out of cash. And for the costly part, they can only do this more for the off-peak period. So they have promotions to try to help you to lower the cost. Okay. End of the day, the product is basically very simple. It's just a mobile ride-hailing platform. So this is for Grab. Okay, moving on. So after we have figured out, so the VPC is a tool for us to basically try to get to understand the customer from the underlying reason, so that we can come up with a good value proposition to have a good product market fit. So after we have figured that out, what is next? We have to figure out, okay, so mobile ride-hailing platform, but what does it mean? What do I need to build there? So this is where, right, we actually look at this whole product concept. Okay, so we are looking at whole product map. Whatever core concept we have here, this is the mobile ride-hailing app. Okay, what are the features that we actually are required to build around the core concept or the core technology? What do we need to do? In this case, product feature 1 and product feature 2, they may actually be the gain creators or the pain relievers. Okay, that links back to the VPC. So this feature actually creates the gain or the value proposition to the customers to compel them to want to buy. Okay. And then feature 3 and 4 may be pain relievers. They help to address the pain points that the customer is facing right now when they're using this. Okay. So this collectively is basically they are your key differentiator. Okay. These are the reasons that the customer is more inclined to buy from you rather than buy from a competitor. But there are actually a lot of other features that may be there for certain reasons. So what are they? So like regulatory requirement, perceived requirement. Sorry. Okay, so for regulatory requirement, right, these are features that need to be there because if let's say you do not meet the regulatory requirement, you cannot legally sell your product in a certain market. Take Singapore, for example. If you are selling electronic products like a laptop or whatever, okay, you have your adapter need to be certified with a safety mark, okay? If your product feature doesn't allow it to be certified with a safety mark, right, technically you can't legally sell it, especially through retail shop in Singapore, right? Then you have a problem reaching out to the market. Okay. There are also certain things that are actually perceived requirements. So what are perceived requirements? Perceived requirement are things that it doesn't actually solve any pain. It doesn't actually create any additional gain for the customers, right? But the customer wants it to be there. It's perceived that it should be there. If it's not there, they will deem your product as inferior or something that they will not buy. And over time, perceived requirement may change in the customer segment. So it's important to keep up to date to understand your market segment. So a very simple example is that I do not know when's the last time everybody here bought a printer. Right? The last time I bought my printer was about a year plus ago. Okay. Because I needed to have a printer at home because of a home-based learning due to COVID. So when I went around to shop for a printer, right, one of the things that, at least for me as a perceived customer, I expect of a printer that I didn't expect 10 years ago is that it must have a function for wireless printing. Okay. There are certain printers that may very cheap, but they do not have wireless printing function. You have to plug in the USB and whatnot. I'm sorry, that is a printer that I will not buy because, right, I perceive that, printer nowadays must have wireless printing. Especially I'm using a MacBook. If they need me to plug in through a USB, I still need an adapter for USB-C. Right, my MacBook don't have USB anymore. So my perceived requirement, at least, or rather for customer segment like myself, we perceive that if I buy a printer, the perceived requirement is it must have wireless printing function. Okay, if it's not, wrong product. Okay. There's also something called alternative value capture mechanism. I'll explain what this is shortly. So end of the day, when we are actually building a whole product, right? Remember, you need to incorporate the features, right, that can serve the needs of the paying customer. Why do we say paying customer? Because at times the intended users may not be the person who is paying you. Okay. In that case, right, you need to find another group of people or customers that are willing to pay you for whatever reason. So this is where you may end up with a dual market segment. Some of your business idea here, if you are looking at certain platform business or matching business, you have two customer segments. So you look like this. There's a customer segment one. Okay, you have to actually address your product is primarily used for them. They're the primary user. Understanding their jobs to be done, everything, your features target their gains and pains. But they may not be paying you. You need a second group of customers, right, that are willing to pay. So that's why you have other product features, right, which are the alternative value capture mechanism that will then meet their pain and gain. And they are the one that pay you. But your product is built more targeted at the customer segment one. Some of you probably have thought about what Google when I talk about this just now, right? So Google is the very simple example that fits the bill. The non-paying customer are Google search users like you and me. We use Google, I think, definitely multiple times on a daily basis, right? Okay, so they have gain creators and pay relievers to actually help us with using Google. Okay, the alternative value capture mechanism here is then, right, targeted at the advertisers. So the advertisers are the ones that are actually paying with cash. Right. At this point of time, I will have participants telling me, no, we pay with data. Yes, I know. Okay, but in this case, let's talk about cash. All right. So the advertisers pays with cash. Okay. They have their gains they want is to have a more relevance targeting. And the pain they face is that, right, they don't know where to place the ad to get better exposure and create better awareness to the customers they want. So what Google did was, they capture our data, which we are paying with data, right? They capture our data and they profile us. And they have algorithms to help the paying customer who are advertisers to target us, and also don't have to think about where to place. We have algorithms, you set the parameters, I will help you to target and place the ad right in the face of the customers you're looking at, which is you and me, right? So this is where, right, there is a dual customer segment. You still pay your product primarily for this, but you need certain additional features, right, in order to convince another group of customers who may be paying for certain things, all right? So a lot of ICT business nowadays, they are looking, when investors invest into startups, right, there are different matrices they look at, different growth matrices they look at, right? So for a lot of SaaS business model, why is the user base, right? Even though the per user, they may not be paying a lot, but why is the number of users a very important growth matrix? Because, so example like Grab and whatnot, why is it important? It's not making a lot of money just from ride hailing. It's because once you collect enough users, critical mass, and you are able to profile them, all this data that you are collecting from these users become very valuable. Then there may be a business model later whereby, right, you find ways to monetize the data that you have collected and how you have profiled the users. Okay. Or perhaps to reach out to the users, you don't pin them off, but rather you have other business model, right, that allow a different set of customers who are the merchants to be able to reach out to this group of customers. And if you're able to allow them to do better targeting, that will definitely be a higher value service that the merchants are willing to pay for. Okay. All right. All these things right now we only have 1 hour, so just pardon me that a lot of things really touch and go. All right. So I will not go into in depth. Okay. So from here, right, the next concept that I want to talk about after we have figured out what are the product that we want is called the minimum viable product. Right. I'm sure quite a lot of us here have heard about minimum viable product. So let's look at what a minimum viable product is. So earlier on in the previous slides, we looked at whole product. So now I know what my product need to look like, what are the features I need to do. Okay, so why do I need to build an MVP? Because end of the day, when we have all the features laid out in the whole product, right? We go out there to do validation. We have not built the product yet. That's the assumption. There are requirements that are known that actually fits the bill and it has a good product market fit or it can be done. There will be certain product features that are unvalidated. Okay, a lot of time MVP is built in order to test out the concept of test out and validate these features on the feasibility as well as the value proposition and the acceptance by the customer segment. Okay, so these are things that we want to test out. But having said that, a MVP doesn't mean that you have to build a prototype. At times, the real definition of MVP is that, right, it is actually something that allows you to validate. Okay, it can come in the form of a video. Okay. Most of us would have probably looked at Kickstarter, Indiegogo, right, crowdfunding sites. Okay. Technically, a lot of people who so-called launch their product or list it on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, right, they're actually trying to validate certain value proposition or features in their product that has not yet been validated in the customer base. Right? It's also a fantastic place to look for early adopters, early innovators, people who are willing to try a product that is not out in the market. End of the day, if you have actually contributed to any campaign on Kickstarter or Indiegogo before, how many of these campaigns you have contributed there is a prototype? There's no prototype. Do they send you a sample to try? Don't have. Normally the successful campaigns, what they do have is a very good video to actually try to show you, oh, this is the innovative feature I have in my product. This is what it can do. You can't get this from other product out in the market right now that you buy. Okay, so MVP can even be a form of a video. So how do we go about building our MVP, or what is the strategy we should adopt? Let's look at a very simple example here. Assuming that the full product that we want to build is basically a car. Okay, what do you think is the strategy that we should adopt? Is it A or B? So for this, I know I can't see you guys. You all can see me. All right. I think what we can do here is that, right, I will just ask and then you all raise your hand. Okay. So how many of you think? And then the moderator, please let me know. We got more people saying A or B. All right. Okay. So for start, right, A, we build the wheels, the base, the body, and then we build the car. So we get a car. That's what we want to build, right? So how many of you think that A is the way we should build our minimum viable product? Raise your hand. Okay, 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, moderator, I hope you're able to see how many people are raising their hand. All right, so then what about B? How many of you think that is B? Okay, you build a skateboard, a scooter, a bicycle, a bike, then you build a car. How many of you think is B? Raise your hand. Okay. Clinton, are you able to let me know whether more people think that is A or B? More people think that is A. Okay, thank you, Clinton. Okay, so I can't say that A is a wrong method. It's the waterfall method, all right? B is the agile method whereby it's a preferred MVP strategy for right, for the business model canvas of the lean methodology. Okay, the reason for this, let me explain. Okay, because if you go with A, right, yes, we know that the final product is a car. If we build a wheel, we cannot do any validation. I can't validate the product feature of the wheel with the customer. All right. After I build the base, I still can't validate anything with the customer. After I build the body without the engine and the cover, I still can't validate anything. So the only point of time I can validate with the customer is when I finish building the car. Okay, the whole product is completed, right? So the customer like it, fantastic. If the customer don't like it, wow, I have wasted a lot of R&D to build a car, all right? How does B help? So B helps that, okay, now I know that the customers want to get from point A to point B faster. So to, in a way, validate the feature of a wheel, because on wheels you travel faster than walking, I built small wheels first. So I built a skateboard. So the customer tried the skateboard, no, I don't like it. I still need to learn, I fall, it's very hard to master, don't like it, no control. Okay, fine, I got the feedback. So you need something that's more control, easier to use. I built a scooter. Okay, so the customer tried a scooter, well, it's all right. But you know what? I need to travel longer distance than these small wheels can carry me. I'm not good enough, sorry. So, okay, I get the feedback. I built a bicycle. So the bicycle said, wow, okay, can go higher speed, longer distance, fantastic. And wow, got wind, I like it. Fantastic. But you know what? Actually, I need to travel a much further distance. I need to travel from house to work and work back to house. Okay, and my office, no bathroom. I cannot bathe. If I were to cycle there, yes, it's possible, faster than walking, but I'll be all sweaty. How do I start work? I need something that doesn't sweat. Okay, can. So I put a motor inside. I built a motorbike for you. Okay. So the customer has motorbike right now, is fantastic. All right. Say, wow, I love the motorbike. Okay. I feel the wind in my face every morning, and when I go home, the evening breeze, so fantastic. I love it. Okay. But you know what? I'm a family man. I have 3 kids at home. Right. I think bike is a bit too dangerous. All right. I think I prefer something safer. So at this point of time, we get the feedback from the customer that, okay, so what they need is something safer, so we build a car. But learning from the insights that we gather from the customer during here, which we were unable to collect here, is that something that they told us here and here is that, they like to feel the wind in their face. This is a customer segment that for some reason love the wind. So what we built here, right, is that what we built here is not just a normal car, it's not a sedan, it's actually comfortable. Okay. So you can see from the smile being bigger here as compared to here, that right, the customer are actually happier. What we managed to achieve here is that we managed to get a much better product market fit than we hypothesized. Okay, so this is one of the other benefit of doing an MVP strategy this way. The core of this is basically the feedback loop. Okay, you build something, go out there to measure, get feedback from the customers, learn from it. What are the insights? Okay, when you're getting feedback from the customers, remember always to probe the underlying reason. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, why don't you like this? Okay, a lot of startups, when they talk to customers about, when customers say I don't like this, oh, okay, strike off. That feature, strike off, don't do. No, you have to understand why the customer like or don't like. Okay, and from there, right, you build a better version, or you build something to validate. Okay, is this better? Go out there and measure again. So you keep going round and round until you get a very good product market fit. But interestingly, even after you have actually launched a product in a market, remember, this is something that we encourage that you should still do periodically to understand your market. End of the day, estimates are always wrong, almost always wrong. Okay, it's very rare that you get it right the first time. So don't see your business or your startup, right, as a gambling or as a bet. Okay, don't gamble, don't invalidate, don't estimate. Okay. So for agile development, to put it in graphical form, okay, if I wait until the end finish, then I can go and validate, right? This is the risk. If the customer like it, good. If the customer don't like it, this is all the money and effort and time that you wasted. If you were to do it incrementally, right, what you're able to do is that if at this point of time you realize, no, they don't want, they at this point of time when I reach the motorcycle, right, this is what customer don't want. Maybe it's a whole country or segment of very environmentally friendly people to a point whereby they do not want to touch any petrol or fossil fuel related energy source. Then I can't build it unless I have alternative energy source like solar panel that can drive my car, right? So at least I know that, okay, I switch. I may want to go to another market, pivot, okay? The other benefit we highlighted is that if you were to do this, there is a very high chance you can get a better value because you are hearing the customers, you're getting feedback from them. Okay, so that's all for MVP. So earlier on, I told you all that, the MVP can be a video, okay? I will send the slides to the Ngee Poly team, okay? End of the day, for Dropbox, their MVP was actually a video. So long story short, they had problem trying to find people to fund their startup. Okay, because back then it's kind of seamless, synchronized way of sharing files across different OS and devices. Not something that people, it's not something that exists. So investors are not sure. So what they did was that they created a video. I'll send the link for the video. You can watch it on your own time. Okay, to show how this can benefit and the basic value proposition, the features to the end users. But they didn't have any product at that point of time. It was hard coded, wireframe, and then they just make it into a video to show like it's working, but they don't have anything yet. Okay. Then they launched the video on YouTube and other platforms, asking for people, if you're interested to use this, you can sign up as a beta user. Overnight, they got more than 70,000 people sign up wanting to be the beta user because the end user sees the value proposition and they really want to use the product. And with that, they raised money. A couple of years later, they built Dropbox. And right now, we have Dropbox, G Drive, and a lot of other file sharing platforms. Okay. Right. The other thing I want to talk about here, right, is okay. So then we move on, right, to the customer relationship. In the customer relationship, right, basically for this is basically just how you get, keep, and grow the customer. Okay. Very touch and go and simple sense here is that you have, before someone become your customers, you have to create awareness, get them to be interested, and get them to consider before they purchase, right? So whatever money you spend here on paid and earned media, these are actually the customer acquisition costs. Okay. Then you need to have a strategy how whether to keep the customer for them to keep buying. For printer, they keep paying for the ink, right? And how you maybe can upsell to them later on by unbundling, cross-sell, or get them to refer new customers to you. Whatever you earn from them here, right, is called the customer lifetime value. Okay. Without going into detail, why this is important is because, very simply put, if your customer lifetime value is higher than your customer acquisition cost, it's a good business model. Don't be surprised. Sounds like common sense, but don't be surprised. I have seen many business ideas whereby, right, the customer acquisition cost is higher than the lifetime value. This is a bad business model. All right. And for those of you who are going to start a business later and look for funds from investors, okay, the ideal ratio that the investors are looking for is minimum. It's not only that ratio, but minimum. Investors are looking for at least 1:3. For every dollar you spend to acquire the customer, you better make sure you can make more than $3 from them over the lifetime as a customer for your company. Okay. All right, so the next part that we're going to talk about, sorry, I focus a lot on VPC and whatnot because actually that is a very important first step. All right, the product market fit is really one of the most important components of VPC. The rest will more or less fall into place and you can figure it out and do validation after you figure out the VPC. Okay. So for channel, right, some of the things that I just want to touch and go and highlight here is for channels that it's basically talking about how do you get a product or value proposition from your company to the customers. So think of it as a distribution channel per se. Okay. But you can do it yourself. You can go to someone else, retail, wholesale, or you can even bundle with other goods and services. So how does this affect your business model other than knowing that who to go for or do it yourself? So this is how actually it will affect your business model. All right. If you're doing it yourself, it's direct sales. Maybe they come to you or you deliver to them. They just buy online, you deliver to them. All right. This is where, right, if this is the price you're selling your customer, all right, you get them some discount, this is a revenue. So this amount of money you collect allow you to cover everything. All right, your general selling expenses, administrative expenses, R&D, profit, cost of goods sold, production. But however, if you're going through a distributor or reseller, they are also businesses. They also have to make money. They also have overhead to pay for. So you may sell it to a customer at $100, but you may be getting only $60. Okay, this is important for you because you need to calculate and know that you can actually pay for the production cost and you're able to pay for your overhead and still actually cater for profit. As we say, all business look for profit, even social enterprises or charity. Profit is still important. Okay, it's just that sometimes other than revenue, they may get government subsidy or donations, but those are still cash inflow. Okay. And we look at a very extreme case. Maybe you have a technology and it's an OEM or licensing model, right? The production cost not even done by you anymore. Okay, there's a lot of overhead, distribution cost, master distributor, reseller. For every $100 product, you may be getting $10 because that's a loyalty fee. What you then need to take care of is and make sure, so you don't have a lot of overhead. Your overhead is much smaller. So make sure that you can cover whatever you need to cover here with the revenue of 10%. Okay, it may be reseller because sometimes for licensing model, you have to go through an agent. Okay, but you won't be manufacturing anymore. Somebody else will be doing it. So why this is important, right? Just a very quick is because you have to understand channel economics. Okay, and that's why that will actually affect even your pricing strategy. A very quick example of a team that I mentored before. They were doing this fantastic product, right? And we asked them to go out there to do market validation, check out the competitors, and also come back with a pricing strategy. So they came back very happy to say that, oh, we're going to kill all the competitors. You know why? Because, right, for every liter they sell, they are charging $130. But you know what? When I produce this in the lab, it cost me $10. I'm going to sell my end product at $30. I'm going to kill all the competitors because they sell at $150. I sell at $30. Then we start to question them. So how are you going to get this to the customer? Who's going to sell for you? Are your customers all in Singapore, staying around your house? No, right? And their customers are golf courses around the world. All right. So we show them. So I show them channel economics. You have to put aside money and margin for reseller, distributors, logistics. Right. You have to know the entire value chain, supply chain before you get to the end customer and cater for every player and everyone inside there, every cost that going to be incurred before the product to your customer. So channel is actually very important. Okay, channel economy is very important. And end of the day, their pricing after we calculated, right, the reasonable amount that they can still make a good profit and try to be price competitive is about $120 at least, very minimally. Okay, so this is why this is important. All right. Okay, so next thing we just briefly talk about key activity, resources, and partners. Okay, once you have figured out the right-hand side of the business model, right, we have to go to the left-hand side, right? Without deep diving too much, these are the things that you need to do, which are the key activities, in order to be able to fulfill all these things. The resources that are things that you have access to, you can do it yourself. But if you can't, that's where you need to actually look for key partners to help you. Okay? And once you figure out who the partners you need to work with, you know the costing and pricing, and what the resources you need internally, you are able to come up with a cost structure. Do a comparison based on your pricing strategy and your revenue stream. Is this a feasible business model? Okay. For resources, right, the four category of key resources here are, physical resources like overheads, buildings, machines, and whatnot. There are also intellectual resources, which are proprietary knowledge. You may have to license an IP or branding, patent, partnership. There are also human resources. This is where you actually employ people because of their experience. And of course, last but not least, every business will need this to a certain extent, is financial resources. It can come in the form of money, investment, credits, or stocks, okay, or overdraft even. But as you look at your entire business model canvas, right, you fill up all the components, it must be linked, okay. There are 4 tests for feasibility, right, that we advise every startup to look into. After you have put in all the components, you have to ask yourself, looking at all this, is this possible? Okay, is this actually operationally feasible? All right, can this be done? Okay, is this technically feasible? Because you may have an innovative product, okay? Look at the technical aspect of things. Can this be done? If the technology nowadays can't be done, let's say I'm selling an app that needs a high data transfer, okay, over the network. 15 years ago, technically not feasible. The app can work, but the infrastructure is not there to support, okay? Schedule feasibility. Is this actually possible to done within a certain timeline? Okay. Financial feasibility, given the resources and partners that I have and what I need to do, in order for you to break even and whatnot, do I have the financial ability to finish this project and make sure that I can launch it as a feasible business? So the financial feasibility brings us to the next thing that we want to show. Okay. This is called the valley of death. Okay. Financial feasibility comes in because, right, as you're starting your company, like we say, you've got limited resources, all right? So in terms of money, right, as you start to create and you start to actually push out your product and you try to build your team, build your product, you are spending money. So your cash flow is negative, all right? You will reach a point of time whereby you will turn around and then you go positive. But at this point of time, you're still burning cash. You're just burning less and less cash until you start be cash flow positive on a monthly basis, for example. At this point of time, we are able to estimate that, probably this amount of money that you need, okay? If you are not able to have enough financial resources to see you through this, remember what is the second reason that company dies, startup fail, run out of cash, okay? Financial feasibility or cash flow planning is more important than a lot of startup things. If you don't plan properly and you get stuck here, you cannot get out of the valley of death, right? You run out of cash, the company dies. Right? There are a lot of companies that I've seen, a lot of startups I've seen that actually fall because of this. Okay. We know that there are a lot of success story out there of startups raising funds. All right. Something that I won't go into detail, but do you know how many investors you have to talk to before, on average, before you can actually find investors that's willing to invest in you? Very rarely you talk to 3 or 4 people and then one invest in you. You have to talk to maybe close to 100 before maybe even 2 investors are interested to say, okay, can we discuss terms? Right, let's see how we can invest. Okay, so be realistic. All right, assume the worst. Okay, that you need to talk to a lot of people because a lot of startups that do not plan this properly, they only start to raise fund 2 months to 3 months before they run out of money. No, the sheer number of people you have to talk to and the negotiation due diligence process that we go through, right? You have to start raising fund as far as 1 year ahead. 6 months is already cutting it close. And if you're lucky, everything go as planned, very smoothly, 6 months, yes, you can close investments. All right. And starting early also gives you more bargaining power with the investors. They will haggle on the valuation if they know that you're running out of cash. They may be very interested, but you have no bargaining chips because your chips are running out. All right. So I'm going to leave you with this as well. Okay, so the J curve, how it look like in the company, and for those of you who are going to raise funds. Okay. Normally, during this period, the people who are going to fund you to go through the valley of death are the angels, all right, or founders self-funds or seeds capital, all right. As you go to market, that's why you see there's a small triangle here. You get very small initial traction, some validation in the market. Then you look at your series A, B, C for early stage investors and later late stage, all right. And when you become rep, then that's where the public market come in. Okay, it can be IPO, secondary offering, or specs. Okay, but very important is that for startup, please recognize that you have limited resources. Getting out of the valley of death as fast as possible is very important. Okay. That's why go and do the market validation. All right. The more you figure out the better product market fit, the higher chance you can get out of this valley of death at the fastest possible rate. Okay. Clinton, can I have 10 more minutes just to show the video? My last slide is the video. Okay, can. All right. So very surface level. Sorry, a lot of things really touch and go. All right. But this is a video that I want to show. This is the video is done, recorded, right, of Outlet. Outlet is a team that went through the business model competition many years ago, all right? And there are actually many videos like this whereby they share about what they did by applying the business model canvas. This is my favorite. Everything that I said and more is actually reflected here. All the pivots, everything being connected, what they need to consider. This video brings out the essence of what I want to bring across normally to the participant. All right, so just give me about 7-8 minutes to go through this video. All right.
Blood baby monitors, and we want to share the story of how this sock is bringing parents peace of mind. So our story starts with Tanner working in the hospital. He works with the technology pulse oximetry. You've all seen this. It's the little red light they put on your finger, monitors your vital signs. He found working with this day in, day out that there was a pain with it that he had experienced, and that pain was the cord. He found that patients didn't like it. He found that nurses didn't like it. It got tangled up. It got in the way. So he assumed that other nurses would feel the same way. So he went ahead to test that assumption. He thought, what if we had a wireless pulse oximeter? We could have nurses use it, and we could sell it through the hospitals. So in validating that, he went out and talked with 58 nurses. He found a really good response rate. 93% said they wanted to see this over the existing technology. However, going back to the hospital, talking with administrators, he got a very different story. This was not a pain for them. It was about money, and it wasn't cost-effective for them, and so they said no. So we learned a very valuable lesson. Your user is not always your customer. Even though we found a user that loved the idea and wanted to use it, they did not have purchasing power, and so going from the yellow, it goes back to red. It's unvalidated. So they're not our customer. We had to move on somewhere else.
A little closer, sorry.
Sorry. This didn't cost a thing, and it only took about a week to validate. So we knew that we needed to pivot. Kurt Workman had experienced firsthand in his family the pain that comes from a child being lost to respiratory failure. And so he thought, what if we pivot, use the same technology in an in-home setting for infants? We can monitor vital signs, blood oxygen levels, heart rate, and report that to a parent, where if there's an emergency during the night, it will alert and alarm the parent, giving them peace of mind knowing that they'll have that type of alert. He had found, in addition, that SIDS is the #1 cause of infant death in the United States. It's often respiratory related, which increases parents' anxiety a lot. In addition, there's 4 million babies born in the US every year. And so with that size, we figured and assumed that's a really big pain. I bet a lot of other parents feel this pain. So we went out to test that assumption. We started with our assumed solution, which was putting the technology into a smart anklet, putting it on the baby. It wirelessly would send that information to a relay station, which was capable of alerting and alarming the parents if there was an emergency, as well as pushing the information onto a smartphone for convenience. So we completely pivoted from our original idea. We started focusing on creating value in a new customer segment for parents in the home setting, helping bring them peace of mind. So we knew there was 2 types of risk we'd be facing in this: market risk, will someone buy it, and technology risk, can we build it? We tackled market risk first because it was easier to get to and it was more important. We initially surveyed 105 mothers, and we found that on average they gave us an 8.5 out of 10 on wanting this product, thinking the technology was great. 96% said that they would use this technology. We got a lot of responses like, "This is awesome, I want to buy one now, and take my money now and start selling it." We knew this was very early validation, but it at least pointed us in the right direction. We really validated this idea when we took the idea into a class project, for which we built a website, we made a video. The video in reality at the time was nothing more than just smoke and mirrors showing what the product could be or what it could do. We put it up on the website, and it leaked out. We didn't intend for this, but it got picked up by 40 news agencies in 13 different countries. A lot of big names picked up this story. And because of that, we received over 500 emails in our inbox. Most of these were from parents begging for the product, saying, we want the peace of mind you provide. We're not sleeping well at night. We're willing to buy a prototype if that's all you have. And so from that, we feel we really validated that, yes, there is a pain here. These parents want the peace of mind that this can provide. In addition, we had 15 distributors around the world reach out to us. Among these, one from our major competitor said they're willing to drop that account, which brings them $2 million in revenue per year, to pick up our account. The second, that's moving forward the fastest, wants to do $50,000 in pre-sales to get this into their market the quickest. The great thing is all of that validation, it came from virtually building nothing at that point. So we feel that indeed, yes, we did validate that there is a pain here and there is a customer that we can service. That only cost us $220 and took about 2 weeks to determine.
So our next question was, how are we going to reach our customers? We initially thought through hospitals, but after talking with pediatricians and mothers, we realized that the best place to sell it would be in the retail location. When looking at how much it was going to cost us to make our product, we realized that at the end, the customers would have to be buying it at around $200. Our question was, are we really creating that much value? So we originally thought and assumed that we would have to rent the product. Our initial survey was pointing us in that exact same direction. We got out of the building, went and talked to the people over at Babies R Us, and they told us there's a huge span of different products as far as price goes, and that the ones that are being purchased the most were in the $200 range. We didn't believe the lady when she told us this, so we called 33 other baby stores, and they told us actually the exact same thing. We were completely wrong. 71% of the baby monitors being purchased today are in the $200 to $200 or $250 price point. And we learned that surveys can also lie if you don't word it correctly. We were asking, what would you expect to pay? But when we started asking what's the maximum you would pay, that completely changed the results that we were getting. We also A/B tested this on our website. People thought that they were purchasing the product when they clicked on the reserve button at different price points. This allowed us to find out what the elasticity of the demand was and find our demand curve and find that the profit maximizing price was at $299. So we, in fact, were proved wrong, and luckily we will be able to sell the product. This cost us $30 and 3 weeks. The next question was, could we build it? And that went right with our next technology risk. The 2 factors that we needed to prove out was pulse oximetry and wireless transmission in this usage. We first did wireless transmission because it was easier. We built the proof of concept. It cost us $300 and 7 weeks, and it was able to do everything that we wanted it to, even though it looked kind of ugly. After proving that, the next question was, can we create pulse oximetry specific for infants? So we went back to the hospital. We interviewed the nurses. We watched how they were using the product, or the current pulse oximeters, and we realized that our design wasn't going to work. For technical reasons, we had to switch to a more sock-like design. We tested that sock-like design with over 120 hours of testing. We did it in 26 different homes and 7 overnight tests with parents. We are happy to see that with our new design, we could in fact build it. It cost us $500 and 12 weeks on working on that. Our next question, which unfortunately we didn't learn this until later in the game, was that we needed FDA clearance on this product. And the first person we talked to said it was going to cost us over $1 million. we had to figure this out. We talked to 16 professionals. We even talked to the labs that we need to work through, and we know it's going to cost us at maximum $200,000 in 13 months. We validated that, and it only cost us $200 in 3 weeks. But at this point, this validation was really bittersweet. We said, man, is $200,000 in 13 months and all that liability really running lean before we can even get a product into a customer's hands? Could we not create something that will be more minimal and less risky and start with that in the market? What was holding us up was the alarm. Alarm plus pulse oximetry means that you need an FDA clearance. We thought, well, what if we scratch the alarm? What could we do? We said, well, we'd have the same product that would still give you all these really cool things, and we could play with that data really in a lot of interesting ways. And maybe we could call it our infant health tracker. This was completely unvalidated, so we had to go back and revalidate whether or not this product with that slight tweak would be different. So we grabbed our clipboards and we headed out to a bunch of retail locations, and we interviewed 81 people in person. We gave them 4 pieces of paper and said, which one would you buy if you had to? And they had to choose between our product and then the 3 other types of product that they can buy in those same price points. We were amazed when 20% of them said that they would choose our product. And we also learned so much about our customers. It's not a one-size-fits-all customer. In fact, we really kind of have a whole range of customers. On one side, we kind of have like our hippie-type mom that's a lot less worried about these types of things. And then you also have the moms that's on the opposite side of the spectrum. The ones that were less worried told us things like, and we kept hearing it over and over, I wouldn't want an alarm on this. This would drive me crazy. And it absolutely floored us, but we realized that our alarm version wouldn't even capture part of the market. And by starting with a health tracker that they liked already, we'd be addressing a completely separate market, not cannibalizing our own sales, and starting with something that was a lot less risky to begin with. As for the parents who weren't worried, we would launch our next product a few months down the road after we'd learned from some risk and avoided some risk with our first product. So that was validated, and we learned so much more about how our customer base is segmented out. This cost us nothing, and it took about 3 weeks to do. Moving forward, we still need to validate a few things. We need to validate whether or not there's a few other subscription-like revenue streams, and we also need to find key partners that are in operations and have retail experience. We got all this done for just over $1,000 and 24 weeks. And we did a lot of validation and talked to a lot of people. Not just surveys, but over hundreds of people we one-on-one interviewed and tried to make fake sales with. We're really excited to be launching this summer.
Okay, yep. So this is the important part is over. So you can see this video actually bring out the essence of how the business model canvas can be actually applied, right? And also one of the things that it brought out is that a lot of different things are all the components are interrelated, correct? If you do a pivot in a certain component, you have to relook and validate all the other components because end of the day, right? End of the day, it may actually affect certain validation you have done, right? And this team actually done all this validation and they got a very good product market fit into a customer segment that they're actually zooming into, right? And fast forward to this year, earlier this year, this company has actually been listed through a SPAC in the US. Okay, I'm pretty sure that they continue to apply what they have learned and using the business model canvas as they actually go out there to commercialize and start the business. Okay, so with this, right, I'll end here. Okay, there's a few books that I recommend that everyone can read if you're very interested about BMC and the Lean methodology. All right, the Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Okay, the Value Proposition Canvas. Okay, and also the Business Model Generation. Okay, these are a few books that I suggest that everybody can take a look at. Right. Okay, so that's all for my session today. I hope you enjoyed it and it was fruitful. I had the challenge to be concise and cram this into 1 hour, but normally a full BMC course take at least 2 days. Okay, so I guess now we move on to a Q&A, right? So if there's any Q&A, let the moderator know and I will look at the chat. Okay, Clinton asked if there any Clinton help you to type your question. Are there any other framework out there aside from PMC? Yeah, there are many models and many different frameworks out there for different purposes, all right? But I would say that for the BMC, it is one of the model that helps to address the business from a very holistic point of view. Okay, if you take a look, all right, if you look at the business model canvas again, right, you have to address the question of who are the customers, all right? What is the value proposition we're actually giving to them, and why would the customers actually want these value propositions, right? How are we going to reach out to them, and how we're going to actually materialize this business plan or business model that we have, and of course the answer of how much, whether if this is a financially viable business. Okay. So I would say that even for the different components of concept, there are certain submodels of concept that I didn't go into detail today from the business model canvas, right? A lot of these tools or concept are not, I wouldn't say they are new. Okay, some of them are based on certain, you contact with business model canvas only about 6-7 years ago, because that's where it became popular, right? But end of the day, for a lot of concepts that builds up the foundation or the fundamental for the business model canvas are not new. I learned about some of these concepts in university 20 years ago. All right, and even then, it appears in my textbook, but they are not new. Okay, so it's about how you actually use the frameworks of the model. It's not just about which model is the best. Okay, but so far, I think this is one of the best models for startups for you to figure out, holistically. Yeah, that's a very good question. Having plan is one thing. How can I actually take action? The business model canvas, what it does is that, right, it's a framework to actually help you to frame up your business idea. End of the day, it is just a plan. You're right. That's why we talk about, validation, the feedback loop. Okay, this is where you are actually doing something that is more tangible, right? This is where you are actually going out there to the market to do validation. You have a plan. You build something, or you plan to build something, you have to go out to measure, get feedback, and validate that the market actually needs this, and this is the correct market segment. Right? Even so, on the left-hand side, even for the partners and the resources they need, these are also validation. Right? So the outlet example, the video is also very good. They validated that, okay, one of the resources they need is FDA clearance. Right? They validated that it must be done. Then they have to figure out, okay, are we going to do this, or is there to execute, do we have to do this to execute, or is there a way to work around this? So they go out there to do further validation. They have managed to find that the customer segment, that is a particular segment that they don't need this, so scrap away and they go ahead and do it. All right? Do you think that starting a company that does consultation services and develop tech is good? I need a lot more detail than that to answer this question. All right. So there are many other variables that we have to consider. So what kind of consultation service are you doing, right? And what kind of tech are you actually developing for your customer? I would think that the best people to answer this are your customer segment. I'm sure you have a certain hypothesis or certain assumptions who the customer you are targeting. Okay. Whether this can be a good business or not, go out there to validate that the customers are actually willing to pay for your consultation service. They're willing to they're actually compelled to change their behavior to use your service or the technology that you may be developing. Okay. So one of the things I think, whether this is going to be a good business or not, I can't give an answer with just a statement like this, but perhaps as you are going out there to test your business model and validate the market, 4 things that you should consider here is that, right, is this actually technically feasible? Is this actually operationally feasible? Okay, can this be done within the time frame you have to roll it out? Right, and of course, does it make financial sense? Can the company make a profit? The other thing to consider that we didn't touch on today is that if tech is involved, you want to consider whether is this actually a scalable business. Okay, a business can be growing, but it may not be scalable. Okay, scaling and growing are different definitions. Scaling means that you are able to grow your revenue at an exponentially faster pace as compared to the resources required to grow. So, for example, for every $100 I make in the company right now, it may require $50, right? But going forward, as I get better, if I am able to scale, I may be able to make $20 with $50, or I can make $100 with $30. All right, then that is scale, as the number and the volume has grow as well. But if you look at purely more traditional model like consultation, a lot of time, I mean, I have a consultancy firm as well. It's very constrained by headcount and the man hours and all that I can't run. Okay, so as a consultancy business, scalability may not really be very viable, but yes, it can grow, right? Okay, any other questions? What is the matrix to gauge revenue stream? Okay, I don't think I put the slides here. I took it up. Okay. Yeah, I have to tell you from memory. Not really a matrix, but at the end of the day, you have to look. Okay, so we keep going back to the customers. All right. What is the buying behavior of the customer segment? For example, if let's say you're selling a technology solution, there are many different kind of revenue streams or revenue model you can adapt, right? It can be SaaS, it can be pay once and then pay maintenance, right? For software. End of the day, we have to look at the customer segment. What are their buying behavior? For example, what is their discretionary budget? If this is a customer segment, the paying a lot of money upfront for a product to save money later is something that they can do because they have a large discretionary budget. This may be something you want to do. I will want to do that because if I do this, it helps me in my cash flow, and this cash flow can be diverted into growing my business upfront. Right? But if the customer segment is very used to, okay, we are not going to fork out a lot of money from this, but yeah, we don't mind paying perpetually, then the SaaS model may actually be something that's more suitable. There are many different type of revenue models out there, which I didn't put a slide in today because we only have 1 hour. Right? It can even be safe as you pay, a lot of different models. So you can come out with a few revenue stream or revenue model. The best person to ask what is best is your customer, as I said, because like what outlet do, go out there to talk to your customer. Okay, there's this this product that can give this value proposition, solve this pain, and give you this gain. Right? So there are four. So these are the various type of charging mechanism or revenue model, right, which is the one that appeals to you most. Okay. For software, for example, there may be customers that prefer is actually a perpetual SaaS. They know they pay more in the long run, but they prefer this because they know that you have to actually maintain and support and patch, debug, upgrade the system. Because if you don't, they can move on to somebody else. There are certain customers whereby they feel that, okay, I need a system that is customized for this, and I don't want to have the same system as my competitors. I prefer to go to an SI to customize for me, so they'll pay a lot upfront to develop. They own the system, and then you maintain the system for them. That's also possible. All right. Okay. Next question. How do you market your value proposition? So this part I didn't go very in depth. In the first place, you need to figure out what is your value proposition. Use a VPC to figure out what is it your customer wants to see and hear that you can solve their problem. Okay. Firstly, figure out what is your value proposition. After you figure out what is your value proposition, okay, depending on your business model, the way to market this, right, there are many different ways to market this. But one of the things that is consistent here is that you know that this is the customer funnel, all right? When you're going out there to market the customers, your value proposition or your product to the customers, right, do know this. You can have the best product in the world, but if the best technology in the world, but if the best product market fit, but if the customer don't know about you, they won't even buy. I've seen a lot of such companies during my days with the VC fund. Okay. There are quite a lot of companies with very cutting edge technology. Like the government VC fund invests into a lot of high tech projects coming out of the university, A-star and whatnot. There are certain businesses, there's a certain teams that we're helping, right? They have very good product, but the founders are made up of the worst I've seen is 7 CTOs, no CMO, no CEO, no CFO, 7 CTOs. And they felt that because they published the paper, this is cutting edge technology, customers will line up outside their door all the way to Jurong to buy that product. But in the end, that wasn't the case. And unfortunately, this is one of the companies that actually it's not around anymore today, right? With whatever business you have or whatever customer segment you're looking at, right, you need to have a strategy and spend money either through resellers, through distributors, or through paid media, or through advertising to first create an awareness. Once you create the awareness, right, they know about you, all right, the customer segment knows about you. You have to have a way to create interest. Get them interested to use your product. And if they're interested, then get them to consider buying, and then when they purchase, this is conversion. Okay, so this funnel looks like this because, right, whatever number you are targeting in terms of conversion, right, when you work backwards, the funnel actually branches out. Okay, so for example, on average, if you do digital marketing and that's where you get your customers, you market your product online, the percentage of conversion is about 1 to 3%. In other words, if you're targeting one customer, you make sure you have the resources through whatever medium out there to reach out to 100, because it's 1 to 3%. If you're targeting 100, you need to reach out 100,000. And from there, you can actually think about, okay, how much money do I need to pay Google Ads? How much money do I need to spend to reach out to 100,000 people in order to close 100? Right. Okay, next question. Next question is, 5 minutes left. Okay, Ken, thanks. Okay, no more questions. We have 5 minutes left. Okay, yep. Okay, if there are no more questions, since we have 5 minutes left, right, I'll just touch on another thing that I skipped just now. Okay. When you're looking at your customer base, right, it's also important to know how big your customer is. This is something that is important to investors, but not doing this just for investors. You are doing this for yourself. You have to know that you have a sizable market to make the business actually feasible. Okay, that's why we say don't look at the whole universe. It can't be anyone. Okay. We have to narrow down, right, from the total available market to the serviceable available market all the way down to the target market. These are the people, especially for startup, right, that most likely to buy. In fact, for start when you're pushing out, you may have to even go a step further to look at your pitch market. This is very important because, right, we have limited resources as startup. We may not have the amount of money to target 100,000 people in terms of marketing effort. So in order to target only maybe 1,000, 2,000 for a start before we get funding from seed investors, we have to know who are the people we need to go to, right? If you're selling something that is more of a consumer product, right, Kickstarter and Indiegogo is some of the crowdfunding platforms that are available today that helps you to reach out to the early adopters or the early innovators, right? Something that doesn't exist. Why is important to know how big is your market, both to the investors and to yourself, is because I can share this as an example. I have a friend who came to me for some advice a few years ago. He had a customer that was in the food catering business. He built a software for this customer and he felt that there's a very good product market fit. The customer loved it. And he found that there's a problem with the menu process. So he built a software for them and he helped them a lot. Then he came to ask me that, hey, should he spend the next 6 months to build a modular plug and play software for food catering? So the first thing we did was that size up the market. Okay, cut a long story short, in the end, we size up that in Singapore, there's probably about 700 plus food catering business. But as we slice and dice, his target market that he can, low-hanging fruit that he can actually target, right, is less than 50. So I asked him a very simple question. Are you going to spend the next 6 months with all your resources to build something that only have 50 customers? And these 50 customers may already have a software or they may not even want to buy the software. So is this a feasible business model? The answer is no. So the size of the market is something that is also important. Preferably, you find a market that is big enough, and preferably this is a market that is actually still scaling. Even if it's not scaling, it's growing at a slow rate. This is a market that you can duplicate in other geographic regions, right? So this is something to consider for you guys when you're planning out the market segment. You have to know that this market segment is feasible for your business. Okay, yeah. Okay, we have 2 minutes left, and so there are no any last question. If you don't have, then I'll give the time back to Clinton. All right, great. Thank you for being a wonderful audience today. Sorry, I can't see you guys. You can see me, right? This has been a very compact version of the BMC version, lesson. But I hope that it gives everybody here some fruitful insights into what to consider when you're starting a business, the different components in the BMC that is corresponding to your business plan. All right, and I hope that there will be a good number of people in the audience today that end up starting a business, and I hope at least one of you become the next grad. All right, Ken, thank you very much. So Clinton, I'll hand the time back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Tan, for that insightful workshop. With that, we have concluded day 1 of InnoPoly. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed the program and are inspired to unleash your untapped potential and discover opportunities through disruption. For those who have missed out on the earlier sessions, the recordings will be available after the event. You'll receive an email notification once it's ready.
Do follow the Sandbox on our socials. Scan the QR code for our Instagram. There's a social media giveaway happening after InnoPoly ends, so do follow and look out for it. You can also stay connected with the Sandbox via email at asksb@np.edu.sg and on LinkedIn at the Sandbox Ngee Ann Poly. To stay connected with the Singapore FinTech Youth chapter, you can email them at admin@fintechyouth.org, at sfyc.sg on Instagram, and FinTech Youth on LinkedIn. At this juncture, we like to hear from you how your InnoPoly experience has been. You will be receiving our feedback forms in your emails in the coming days, and we hope to hear your suggestions for improvement and feedback. InnoPoly 2021 is organized by The Sandbox, Nanyang Poly's Innovation and Entrepreneurship Office, in conjunction with the Singapore FinTech Youth Chapter. Once again, I'm Marie.
I'm Joash, and it's our pleasure to be your MCs for today. Have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 2 of InnoPoly.